Hello. I'm Karen Degenhardt. Okay, this is just a totally spontaneous sharing. I belong to a Unitarian Universalist church group that's kind of small in Colorado. So I help out now and then, maybe leading the service, and today I did that for our small group and showed a video from YouTube, which is a sermon by a Unitarian Universalist man who is gay, and the sermon was called "Who is a UU Christian?" by Brian Elwood. That's his name. And this was just on YouTube. You could look up under UU Christian or Brian Elwood or UU sermons in general and find it. And he makes a comment in his sermon that he felt it was easier to come out as a gay man than to come out as a Christian in a Unitarian Universalist church, which is both funny and sad at the same time, because this is a denomination that started by Christians, even though they were all rebels and rejected the Roman Catholic Trinity and different formats that were presented in Christianity earlier on and in bigger institutions. And yet, so often, they are not open to Christianity at all. And you feel embarrassed to even side somewhat with some of the great teachings or parables of Jesus and things like that. So I could identify with that point of view, and I thought it made an interesting point. So I showed the video, and then we had discussion. And, well, everybody's free to think what they want. It was still pretty obvious that most in our group kind of have a negative overall view of Christianity and basically are atheists, agnostics, or universalists in a way that doesn't like to mention Christianity, which wouldn't really be universalist, because the Universalist Christian Church was initially Christian, but also open to other beliefs and paths towards truth and doing righteousness in life and so on. And so it just makes me think more and more how puzzling it is to me that some people don't get to a deeper level of understanding some of the teachings of Christ, which, I don't imply that you need a particular doctrine or church either, especially since we can read the Bible now and meditate on it and study different history about it and how the scriptures might have come together and all sorts of things like that, and just have a much wider view of it in general. And yet there's still quite a resistance there. It's just a real interesting phenomenon. Oh, I'm going to pause. Now, my story is that I actually went to a Christian seminary, Chicago Theological Seminary, but it's liberal and intellectual, so I just can't seem to convey to people that there's Christians and there's Christian ministers that maybe are agnostic too, or interpret God and Christ in their own manner, and there's no rigidness anymore. It's, maybe in some fundamental groups or limited places, let me tell you, but most Christian leadership is pretty well educated these days, and just not as far out as some people seems to still think. So I guess it's just still bothers me that they're kind of prejudiced like that, a lot of them, when it's supposed to be kind of a universal belief that came out of Christianity and Judaism. It puzzles me endlessly because, I studied in seminary things like the ground of being and process theology and all these abstract philosophical ways to interpret God and your own way of interpreting God and Christ, and basically not that much different from Unitarian Universalism. But there's still a gap of some kind. I really can't explain it, except that somehow Christ is still the stumbling block of some sort. I don't know what else to say. I'm not any rigid believer of any type. I'm more into shamanism, actually. But when I'm around these people, they seem like fundamentalists and bigots to some extent. And yet I like a lot of them. So there's just a strange gap there that is hard to fathom. And, Unitarian Church and the Universalist Christian Church merged in the early 60s, and it was largely out of financial reasons, trying to pool their resources and church buildings and whatever. And there's more Christian-oriented ones in the East than the Midwest or the West, but there might be some, but most of them, again, they're pretty much more in line with humanism or Buddhism or anything but Christianity. They just can't understand it. And it just boggles my mind, really, because my search for truth has made me want to be open as much to everything, to deeper meanings that may be in Christianity, or just the history of how it came together, which could be controversial in some ways, and maybe I'll do a talk on that sometime. And that you can have an open mind and be intelligent and still just still believe in a higher power, or that Jesus, Yeshua, the Christ, the Messiah, whatever you would call him, did something special and unique, or had some special and unique teachings that have affected Western society, whether for bad or good, because so much of it was conflictual and restrictive, but still so much of it helped form our culture. So it's kind of really schizophrenic to just hate a whole part of yourself and your history without delving deeper into it for deeper understanding. So that's where I am at, but I don't seem to have the capability to fully explain what insights I have to some of these other people, and it causes a feeling of alienation on my part, such as also what Brian Elwood talked about in his sermon, who is a UU Christian, found on YouTube. And I don't know, maybe the churches shouldn't have merged, because the Universalist Christians probably aren't quite as Christophobic or paranoid or even mean towards Christianity. They're probably just Christians that are more open-minded and also justice-oriented, whereas the Unitarians seem to have come from being mystics like the Transcendentalists that inspired them to totally left brain, all science, not very mystical, not very open to anything, non-linear kind of type of thinking. And I imagine Jungian typology would explain some of it, but whatever my typology is, which is probably INFJ or INFP, introvert, feeling, I can't remember, you can look it up if you want. Anyway, there's just some oddball conflict that wouldn't have to really be there, because if you've got a liberal Christian church where they all at least kind of profess to be Christian, like the United Church of Christ, at least they probably don't look at you askance and like an oddball if you like Christ's words and sometimes in the scriptures. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not sure what to do about this. It depends a lot on the actual congregation you're in, though, because each one's different, or a big one might have little break-off groups of people that are more compatible in thinking and can share intimately that way and feel accepted more. But I don't know, I've always felt a little bit like an oddball, even though I don't fit too well in any other church that's around here that I want to go to. So, what do you do? That's it.